Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Old Fart here, just farting around. I got Winky here with me today. Winky, can we get a high five for the folks at home? A kiss and a high five? A high five? Another kiss? Alright, how about a high five? Oh yeah, there we go. Good boy. Alright. Well, again, welcome back folks. If you're new, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and give you your top 10 list for today. It's the 10 most astonishing thefts. And we'll go ahead and start off with number 1. The British Crown Jewel Theft. It was right around 1965 in the Tower of London, during the reign of King Charles II, a swashbuckling highwayman, Colonel Thomas Blood, posed as a clergyman to gain access to the royal treasure room high atop the Tower of London. Overpowering an unworried crowd, Blood stashed the gem-encrusted crown and dozens of other jewels in a sack and fled. But he was captured before clearing the tower. Blood's daring venture was so intrigued King Charles that he commuted the automatic death sentence and instead conferred upon the royal burglar a lifetime annual pension of £300. Incredible, isn't it? So instead of jail, instead of a death sentence, instead of any trouble, he actually gets an annual pension of £300.
Are you serious?
Number 2 on our list. The Central Pacific Express. This was in Verde, Nevada on November 5th, 1870, and Independence, Nevada on November 6th, 1870. In one of the nation's first train robberies, 6 men, led by Big Jack Davis, hopped aboard the eastbound express for Reno, forced the train to stop, and rode off to Virginia City with $40,000 in minted coin. 10 hours later, as a delayed engine chugged into Independence, 6 Army deserters jumped aboard to take $4,490 that the Davis gang had overlooked. Within a few days, authorities captured all 13 bandits who were sentenced variously from 10 to 15 years in prison. And number 3 on our list is the First National Bank, and that was in Northfield, Minnesota, on September 7th, 1876. This bungled up holdup destroyed the notorious James Younger gang after 15 years of outlawry. The 8-man crew stormed the tiny town of 4,000 in hopes of taking the fat payroll of the Ames flour mill. Instead, an alert citizenry shot it out with the bandits and drove them into the hills with only $12 in stolen currency. 2 of the armed robbers lay dead in the street. 5 others, among them Frank and Jesse James, suffered gunshot wounds. During the escape, the James brothers split off from the other 4 and found refuge across the border in the Dakotas. The 3 younger brothers, Bob, Cole, and Jim, were captured 2 weeks later and received life in the Minnesota State Penitentiary. Jesse was for bounty in 1882. That same year, Frank surrendered voluntarily, was twice tried and acquitted, and retired to his Missouri farm where he died in 1915. And that brings us to number 4 on our list. The Duchess of Devonshire. In London, May 25th, 1878, gentleman burglar Adam Worth engineered the theft from art dealers Agnew and Agnew, not for profit, but rather as a bargaining wedge with which to secure the release of his employee, George Thompson, who had been arrested for check forgery. Using a thick London fog to cover his entry through a second-story window, Worth scrambled in and out of the Agnew building in 5 minutes, but by the time he sent a note to authorities promising restoration of the Gainsborough masterpiece in exchange for his colleagues in crime, Thompson had already been freed on a technicality. Worth, unwilling to give up the painting for nothing, shipped it to America, where it spent the next quarter of a century in Brooklyn and Boston warehouses. In 1901, broke and dying from tuberculosis, Worth sold the Duchess back to Agnew and Agnew for an undisclosed sum. And I don't know if you like my British accent or not, but that brings us to number 5 on our list. Condon Bank, and that was in Coffeyville, Kansas, October 5th, 1892. Don't worry, there's no accent or anything for Kansas. After 3 years of horse stealing and train robbery, the three cocky Dalton brothers and two other outlaws returned to their home of Coffeyville, intent on simultaneously knocking over two banks. Bob Dalton, age 25, and brother Emmett entered the First National Bank, while Grant Dalton and the other two stormed the Condon Bank. Detected in progress, the twin holdups collapsed before the massive local resistance. When the smoke finally cleared, only Emmett and Dalton remained alive. Surviving multiple gunshot wounds, the youngest Dalton brother stood trial and was found guilty. After serving 14 years of a 25-year sentence, he was granted a full pardon by President Theodore Roosevelt. All right, and that brings us to number 6 on our list. And that is the Mona Lisa. And that was in the Louvre, Paris, August 21st, 1911. On a cleaning day, when the museum was closed to the public, Vincenzo Perugia, a Louvre employee, cut the priceless Mona Lisa from its gilt frame and headed for the exit. Since Leonardo da Vinci had painted the smiling lady on wood instead of canvas, Perugia couldn't just roll it up and run. Still, he managed to sprint it to his apartment, where it remained in the false bottom of a trunk for 2 years. After the furor in the press finally died down, he attempted to sell the painting to his native Italy for $95,000. That was a lot of money back in 1911. Italian officials promptly arrested him and returned the 300-year-old masterpiece to France without a scratch. At his trial in Florence, Perugia convinced the tribunal that his act was one of patriotism.
What?
That his sole motive was to return the portrait to the land of its creator. Thus, he received the relatively light sentence of 1 year and 15 days. Do you believe that? 1 year and 15 days for stealing the Mona Lisa. I think in today's world, you would not be only getting 1 year and 15 days. You would probably just get probation. I'm always kidding. I don't know that. But number 7 on our list, we have the First National Bank. And that was in Mason City, Iowa, on March 13th, 1943. While designated public enemy number 1 by the FBI, John Dillinger, age 31, along with Cut. All right, and that brings us to number 7, the First National Bank, and that was in Mason City, Iowa, on March 13th, 1943. While designated Cut.
The fuck? What are we doing here? I don't know.
And that brings us to number 7 on our list, the First National Bank in Mason City, Iowa, on March 13th, 1943. While designated public enemy number 1 by the FBI, John Dillinger, age 31, along with trigger-happy Babyface Nelson and 4 others, burst into a bank brandishing pistols and machine guns. A guard perched in a glass booth above the teller's cage fired off a tear gas pellet at the bandits before taking a bullet himself. With tears streaming down their faces, the gang ordered the vault opened, and assistant cashier Harry Fisher handed over a huge sack of pennies and slowly produced stacks of dollar bills. The delaying tactic worked, and Dillinger's crew fled with barely $50,000 of the $240,000 on hand. Although Dillinger and a few others were wounded in the escape, the gang eluded the police and finally found refuge in a Wisconsin resort. I wonder if that was a Wisconsin Dells, because that's a pretty nice resort area in Wisconsin. Later that year, Dillinger was betrayed by a girlfriend and gunned down in Chicago by FBI agents on July 22nd. Nelson met a similar fate 4 months later. And that brings us to number 8 on our list, the Brinks headquarters theft. And that was in Boston, Massachusetts on January 17th, 1950. And I don't have much of a Boston accent either, so I can't really do this in a Boston accent. For 2 years, 11 middle-aged Bostonians plotted out a scheme to break in the Boston Harvard Yard. No, I'm kidding. To break into the headquarters of the famed armored car company. On numerous occasions prior to the actual robbery, they entered the building after midnight to study the alarm system and the safe. After a complete dress rehearsal in December 1949, they felt ready for the real thing. Thus, on the appointed day, 7 of the petty thieves, dressed in simulated Brinks uniforms, rubber Halloween masks, and overshoes, slipped into the counting house and emerged just 15 minutes later with $2.5 million in cash, checks, and securities. The bandits kept a low profile for nearly 6 years, but less than a week before the expiration of the statute of limitations, one of them confessed to the police. As a result, 8 of the 11 men went to prison under a life sentence. That's insane if you think about that. That's crazy. They dressed up in Brinks uniforms, rubber Halloween masks, and walked off with $2.5 million in cash. Incredible. It truly is. And that brings us to number 9 on our list. The Bank of Nova Scotia in Montreal, Canada. And that was on July 1st and 2nd, 1961. I'm not sure why my notes say July 1st and 2nd. I think it may have been a 2-day robbery. Veteran Canadian burglar Jacques Lemay chose the weekend of Dominion Day, a national holiday, to blast a 200 square inch hole through the 2-foot concrete vault floor. After prying open 400 safe deposit boxes, Lemay was able to crawl back to daylight with what bank officials conservatively estimated to be $633,605 in cash, jewelry, stock bonds, traveler's checks, and rare stamps and coins. Although he evaded authorities for years, Lemay in 1965 became the first known criminal to be captured with the help of early bird satellite, which relayed his photo to TV screens all over the world. Nabbed in Miami, he immediately married his girlfriend so that she could not be forced to testify against him. He nevertheless stood trial in Montreal and was convicted on the testimony of his accomplice, Jacques Lahoy. On January 17, 1969, Lemay served an 8-year term, and the loot has never been recovered to this day. And that brings us to the last one on our list, folks. Thanks a lot for staying this far. And the last one you may know about, you may have heard about possibly, but if not, you will now. And that's called the Great Train Robbery, and that was near Cheddington, England on August 8th, 1963. In a grand scheme, timed down to the second, 12 masked Englishmen converged on a pre-selected site in 2 Land Rovers, a 3-ton army truck, 2 Jaguars, and a motorcycle. They quickly switched the railroad signals, and like clockwork, the Glasgow to London mail train ground to a halt right before them. In less than 45 minutes, they fled with $7,368,715 in cash. I had to read that number twice. In spite of all their well-laid plans, the thieves blew the otherwise perfect crime when they failed to wipe their fingerprints at a nearby drop house. They are now serving an aggregate sentence of about 300 years. Less than 1 million of the whole has thus been recovered. And that is the end of our list. Thanks a lot for sticking around. I hope you like my goofy accents. As you see, I got the old Timu studio over here, and my co-host fell asleep. Wink? Hello? You fell asleep. He had a rough night, I guess. As you see, my studio is missing a YouTube plaque. So if you could please share this video, comment a little bit on this video if you can, that'd be awesome, because it really does help the YouTube algorithm, and it helps push my video to people like you that like this video and clicked on it. And that's all I'm trying to do, is just bring this awesome content to everybody that likes to see this stuff, because none of this is AI generated, and that's what I think America and what the viewers really want to see more of. Yeah, AI is really, really big now, but I think it's getting to the point where people just want to see real people like myself, and they want to hear real things, not just computers talking and just artificial fake stuff. So that's why I'm bringing it to you live. I'm so proud to do this. There's nothing more than I like than being in front of the camera now, editing. I love the whole 9 yards of this. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day or night, depending on when you're watching this, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.